John and Emily seemed like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, a dark secret was brewing, one that would shatter their family forever. When Emily discovered a shocking truth hidden in her husband's clothing, everything spiraled into a deadly nightmare no one saw coming. John and Emily had built what many would call the ideal life. Nestled in a peaceful suburban neighborhood lined with leafy trees and well-kept lawns, their home was the picture of comfort and stability. John, a successful accountant, was known for his steady job at a reputable firm, earning enough to provide a comfortable lifestyle for his family. Emily, a devoted mother, stayed at home to raise their two young children, a lively 5-year-old boy and a curious 3-year-old girl. Together they appeared to be the perfect family, admired by their neighbors and friends. Their life followed, a predictable routine. John would leave early in the morning, dressed sharply in a suit and tie, off to a day of crunching numbers and managing clients' accounts. Emily would spend her days managing the household, preparing meals, organizing the children's activities, and making sure everything ran smoothly. They had a close-knit circle of friends and were regular attendees at community events and school functions. Everyone believed they had no secrets, no worries, just a happy family living the American dream. To help keep up with the demands of parenting and the busy household, Emily had hired Lisa, a young babysitter who was friendly, cheerful, and seemed trustworthy. Lisa was just in her early 20s, a college student working part-time to pay her bills. She quickly became more than just someone to watch the kids. She was welcomed into the family's daily life. Lisa was patient with the children, often reading bedtime stories or playing games that kept the little ones entertained while Emily took time to manage other tasks or catch up on rest. The children adored her, and Emily felt relieved to have a reliable helping hand. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. John was the loving father and husband everyone expected. He spent weekends coaching the little league team and attending family dinners. Emily trusted him completely, but subtle changes began to creep into their relationship, almost like shadows lengthening at dusk. John's phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now always face down and locked. He started spending more time at work, taking urgent calls late into the evening. The light in his eyes seemed to dim, and his smiles became forced and brief. Emily noticed these changes but convinced herself that stress from work must be the cause. Still, a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. One afternoon, as she tidied the living room, she caught John glancing nervously at his phone, hastily hiding the screen when she entered the room. It wasn't the man she had married. A cold suspicion began to grow in Emily's mind, but she pushed it away, afraid of what she might find if she looked too closely. Despite her growing doubts, Emily kept the household running as best she could. She continued to trust Lisa, who seemed like a constant, a friendly presence amid the turmoil. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. The perfect family image that had once seemed so solid was starting to crack, and no one could tell just how deep the fractures would go. Little did Emily know that the quiet afternoons and peaceful routines were about to be shattered. A secret was brewing, one that would change everything she thought she knew about her husband, the babysitter, and her own life forever. What started as small suspicions would soon unravel into a nightmare no one in the neighborhood could have imagined. Emily's unease grew stronger with each passing day. She tried to ignore the feeling at first, telling herself she was imagining things, that John was simply tired or stressed from work. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. It was the little things that unsettled her most. The way John would suddenly become quiet when she entered the room, the quick glances he cast at his phone, and how he started coming home later, offering vague excuses about meetings or extra projects. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Emily began doing laundry as usual. She sorted through the family's clothes, folding shirts and pants with practiced hands. That's when she noticed it. A faint, but unmistakable scent lingering on one of John's shirts. It wasn't the familiar smell of his cologne or the detergent they always used. Instead, it was something delicate and floral, a scent that didn't belong to Emily at all. She paused, holding the shirt closer to her face, her heart beating faster as a cold wave of doubt washed over her. Curiosity turned to alarm when she found something else. Hidden beneath a pile of laundry was a piece of women's underwear, not hers, and certainly not something she recognized. The fabric was soft, a lacy pair in a pale color, clearly someone else's. Emily's mind raced. How had it ended up in their laundry basket? There was no reasonable explanation. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. John was involved, with another woman. A heavy silence filled the room as Emily tried to steady her breathing. The home that once felt safe now seemed strange and hostile. She felt a mixture of anger, betrayal, and sadness swirling inside her. Questions flooded her mind. Who was this woman? How long had this been going on? And what would it mean for their family? From that night on, Emily's suspicions became impossible to ignore. She began paying close attention to John's behavior, looking for any clues that would confirm what she feared. She noticed the small changes that she had brushed aside before. The way John would quickly hide his phone when she entered the room, the unexplained text messages that popped up and disappeared too fast for her to read, and the secretive smiles exchanged during late phone calls. Emily's instincts led her to watch John's daily routine more carefully. She noticed he was often making excuses to leave the house, sometimes even on weekends. She kept her distance, but observed from afar, hoping to catch a glimpse of the other woman. It was exhausting, but Emily's need to know the truth outweighed her fear. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. She saw John meeting someone at a local coffee shop, their conversation quiet but intense. Her heart sank when she recognized the woman. It was Lisa, the babysitter, who had been a trusted part of their family for months. The realization was devastating. The betrayal was not only from her husband, but from someone Emily had welcomed into her home, someone who had cared for her children. Emily's world crumbled as she tried to process this double betrayal. She felt trapped between her role as a mother, a wife, and a woman hurt by the people she had trusted most. The secret affair was not just a simple mistake. It was a dangerous thread that threatened to unravel everything she held dear. Yet despite the pain, Emily knew she had to confront the reality and find a way to protect herself and her family from the damage that was coming. Emily's discovery that Lisa, the babysitter she trusted, was involved with John was a shock that shattered her world. For weeks she replayed everything in her mind, trying to understand how someone she welcomed into her home could betray her so deeply. Lisa had been kind to the children, always cheerful and reliable. The thought that she was secretly meeting with John, behind Emily's back, filled her with a mixture of disbelief and anger. At first, Emily tried to convince herself it was just a passing phase, something that might stop before it went too far. But the signs were impossible to ignore. Lisa suddenly started dressing differently, more stylishly, with new clothes and accessories that Emily knew the babysitter couldn't afford on her student wages. There were more late-night messages on John's phone that Emily caught by accident, and secret meetings during the day when John would claim to be working nearby. Each new piece of evidence deepened the wound. Emily's mind was filled with questions she didn't want to ask but couldn't avoid. How long had this been going on? What did Lisa want from her family? And most painful of all, how could John, the man she once trusted completely, do this to her? She felt humiliated, like a fool who had been blind to the truth all along. But Emily was not someone who could simply give up. The pain turned into determination. She decided to gather proof, not only to confront John, but to protect herself and her children from further harm. Quietly, she began watching John more carefully. She checked his phone when he wasn't around, looking for messages or pictures. She followed him on days when he said he had errands or meetings, hoping to catch him with Lisa. It was a dangerous game, but Emily felt she had no choice. One afternoon, Emily found a series of photos on John's phone, pictures of Lisa in their home, dressed provocatively, sometimes even with John beside her. The images confirmed the affair was real and serious. Her heart broke as she stared at the screen, tears stinging her eyes. She felt trapped, caught between wanting to scream at John and fearing the consequences if she did. The betrayal cut deeper because Lisa was not just any woman. She was the person who took care of Emily's children, someone Emily had trusted with their safety. The thought of Lisa sneaking around, hiding the affair while caring for the kids, filled Emily with a mix of rage and fear. What else was Lisa capable of hiding? Could she be trusted around her family any longer? Emily's world became a whirlwind of emotions. She wanted to confront them both, but was terrified of what might happen. What if John refused to end the affair? What if Lisa didn't want to leave? Emily began to feel isolated, unsure who she could turn to. She kept her pain hidden from friends and family, afraid that no one would understand or that the truth would cause even more damage. As the days passed, the secret affair loomed over the household like a dark cloud. Emily's trust was broken, her marriage hanging by a thread. She realized that the comfortable life she once had was slipping away, replaced by uncertainty and fear. But in the midst of her despair, one thing was clear: the situation could not continue. Something had to change, and Emily knew that change might come with a cost none of them were ready to face. What started as a quiet suspicion had now become a dangerous truth, one that would lead to consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. Tension inside the house grew unbearable. Emily's anger and heartbreak twisted into something darker, a fierce determination to confront the truth head-on. She couldn't bear the thought of John and Lisa continuing their secret affair, pretending nothing was wrong while tearing her family apart. One evening, after days of careful planning, Emily decided to follow them. That night, John left the house quietly, claiming he had to meet a client. Emily waited in the shadows, clutching her coat tightly as she trailed him through the dark streets. Her heart pounded in her chest as she saw him pull up to a small, dimly lit park on the edge of town. Moments later, Lisa appeared, her figure illuminated faintly by a street lamp. They greeted each other with a closeness that stung Emily like a sharp blade. For a while, Emily stayed hidden, watching the couple embrace and talk in hushed voices. She wanted to turn away, to walk back to the safety of her home and pretend none of this was happening, but the hurt inside her would not let her. She stepped out of the shadows, her voice trembling with rage and pain, though no one could hear it. The confrontation was explosive. John and Lisa's calm facade shattered in an instant. John tried to explain, to calm Emily down, but his words only fueled her fury. The woman she once trusted stood silently, her eyes flickering between fear and defiance. The night air was thick with tension, and the peaceful park suddenly felt like a battlefield. Emotions boiled over, and before anyone could stop it, a violent struggle erupted. Emily's anger gave her strength, but the fight quickly became chaotic and brutal. John tried to pull Emily away, but she resisted, desperate to make him face the consequences of his betrayal. Lisa, caught in the middle, tried to defend herself. The heat of the moment, Emily grabbed a heavy rock lying nearby. Driven by a surge of desperation and rage, she struck Lisa. The blow was hard and unexpected. Lisa fell to the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Panic washed over Emily as she realized what she had done. She looked at John, who was frozen, shock and fear etched across his face. Emily fled into the night, her mind racing and her body trembling. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to escape the scene of the violence she had unleashed. Behind her, the park was silent except for the distant wail of sirens approaching. The next morning, news spread quickly. Lisa had died from her injuries. The quiet neighborhood was stunned. How could the trusted babysitter, the kind woman who played with children and cared for their safety, end up dead in such a brutal way? Police swarmed the area, gathering evidence and questioning neighbors. John was arrested for his part in the events leading up to the tragic night. Emily was taken into custody, charged with murder. The community that had once admired the family now whispered about secrets, betrayal, and violence that shattered their peaceful lives. Behind closed doors, the truth was far more complicated than anyone imagined. The affair, the lies, the pain, and the betrayal had all led to a brutal climax, a moment where desperation turned deadly. Emily's actions, driven by heartbreak and rage, had unleashed a tragedy that no one could have predicted. What began as a secret affair hidden beneath the surface had erupted into a violent nightmare, leaving a family broken and a community shaken. The dark consequences of betrayal had become painfully clear, marking the beginning of a long and difficult journey toward justice and healing. The days following the brutal murder were filled with chaos, confusion, and heartbreak. The peaceful suburban neighborhood that once seemed so safe was now the center of a shocking crime scene. Police officers, detectives, and journalists descended upon the community, all eager to uncover the truth behind the tragedy that had shaken everyone to their core. Families whispered behind closed doors, neighbors exchanged worried glances, and the children who once played happily in the yards now faced an uncertain future. Emily sat in a cold interrogation room, her mind replaying every painful moment leading up to that night. The weight of what she had done pressed heavily on her, mingling with the years of betrayal she had endured. She was charged with murder, but her story was far from simple. The courtroom became a battleground where truth, emotion, and justice collided. During the trial, Emily's defense lawyer painted a picture of a woman pushed to her breaking point. The betrayal by her husband and the babysitter, the emotional torment she had suffered in silence, all of it was laid bare for the jury to see. Witnesses came forward, revealing the affair between John and Lisa, the secret meetings, and the lies that had shattered the family's foundation. John's role in the tragedy was also scrutinized. He was charged with adultery-related offenses and faced public condemnation for his betrayal. The affair, which had started as a hidden secret, became the central focus of the case. The judge and jury had to weigh Emily's actions against the emotional abuse and deception she endured. Many in the community sympathized with Emily, seeing her as a victim of circumstances that spiraled out of control. Others saw the crime as unforgivable, no matter the reasons behind it. The trial revealed the dark side of relationships, where trust can be broken in the most painful ways and the consequences can be deadly. As the jury deliberated, Emily awaited their decision with a mixture of hope and dread. The verdict would decide not only her fate, but also how the world would remember the story of a wife betrayed, a secret affair, and a brutal murder born from heartbreak. In the end, Emily was found guilty of manslaughter rather than murder. The court acknowledged the extreme emotional distress she had suffered and the provocation that led to the deadly confrontation. She was sentenced to a prison term shorter than what murder would have demanded, but a punishment that reflected the seriousness of her actions. John faced separate legal consequences and public disgrace. The couple's children were placed with relatives, their lives forever altered by the tragedy that had torn their family apart. Lisa's death became a cautionary tale in the community, a stark reminder of how secrets and lies can destroy lives. The case left many questions unanswered, and the wounds it caused would take years to heal. It was a story that exposed the fragility of trust and the devastating power of betrayal. The perfect family image had crumbled, revealing the dark reality beneath the surface. In the quiet moments after the trial, Emily reflected on everything that had happened. She realized that the pain, anger, and loss had changed her forever. The affair and its brutal end were a tragic chapter in her life, one she hoped others could learn from. It was a harsh lesson on the dangers of secrets, the consequences of deception, and the fragile bonds that hold families together. Though justice had been served, the scars remained. The story of a husband's secret affair with their babysitter, ending in a brutal murder sparked by a wife's discovery, would be remembered as a tragic reminder that sometimes the people closest to us can cause the deepest wounds.